Now at the bottom of page 3 we have an example of the application exercises you're going to see. You can expect that you're going to be dealing with some sort of rational exponents. So let's read through 58 and see what they're asking us to do here. The formula A equals 1.83w raised to the 2/3 models the area of an eggshell A in square centimeters in terms of its weight w in grams. Part A, an ostrich egg weighs approximately 1,600 grams. Use a calculator to approximate the shell's area to the nearest tenth of a square centimeter. Part B, rewrite the formula in radical notation. So let's read through this again and see what they give us, see what they're asking us. The formula, A equals 1.83w to the 2/3, models the area of an eggshell A. So this is the area of the eggshell, and that's in square centimeters. They tell us that, in terms of its weight w in grams. So the w here is weight, and it's going to be in grams. Okay, and then they ask us, or they tell us that an ostrich egg weighs approximately 1,600 grams, and then we're going to use a calculator to approximate the shell's area. So we want to know the area to the nearest tenth of a square centimeter, given that the w, so they're giving us w equal to 1,600, and we're going to find A. And then I'm going to just peek ahead here. The second thing is to rewrite the formula in radical notation. Unless you have a button and you know how to put in fractional exponents, it might be simpler to go ahead and get it into radical notation first to rewrite the formula. So I'm actually going to do this first because the current calculator I'm using, as I use these notes, it's much easier if I can get it into radical form instead of fractional exponents. You'll have to get to know your calculator, and that's something you can bring to class too, and we can talk through what different buttons and what's best for your calculator. Every calculator is programmed slightly different when it comes to exponents. Okay, so if I rewrite the formula, I start with A equals 1.83w to the 2/3. 2 is my power, 3 is my root, and you can write this one of two ways. Of course, 1.83 is not affected by this at all. It's out in front. Just the 2/3 applies to the w. I can do the cube root of w first, then take that answer and square it. Or, again, 1.83 is out front. I could square w first and then take the cube root of it. Totally up to you. But now that I have that written down, it might be easier to then do part A. This is just a preference because I know my calculator, and it's just going to be easier if I can pick one of these radical forms. So as I look at this, I'm going to replace in the formula 1,600 for w. So I can have 1.83 times the cube root of 1,600 and then square that before I multiply it by 1.83. Or, if I so choose, I can do 1.83 times w squared, so I could take 1,600 squared and then take the cube root of that. So just because I ended up writing that second, I'll do that one here. We'll try this one. And so when I punch in 1,600 squared into my calculator, I get 2,560,000. And then when I take the cube root of that, my calculator happens to have a cube root button. Yours might need to raise it to the 1/3 if you have a caret button, or if you have an x root y button, you'll need to put in wherever the x is, put that value in first, and then wherever the y is. Some of them are y root x, some of them are x root y. Again, this is something I'm happy to help with in class, so make sure you bring up those questions and I can point out which buttons will work for you. You want to get familiar before you get to the test with those. So then the cube root, and again, the reason I'm doing the powers first, I did an exponent and then a cube root. All those are in the exponent family. Powers and roots are all in that family, and that comes before multiplication in the order of operations. So cube root of 2,560,000 is a big old number, so I've still got my 1.83. Times it's 136.7980, so it just goes on and on and on forever. So I'm going to take that number, whatever shows up on screen, multiply it by the 1.83, and then I get 250.340478. It just goes on and on forever again. it told me I wanted to round to the nearest tenth. So I go right here to the nearest tenth. I look to the number next to it. It's a 4, so that means I'm going to stay right where I am. 250.3. I round down, so to speak, or just stay. I'm not going to round up in this case. 250.3 square centimeters. So that's an example of the application exercises you'll see. You'll also have a few review exercises and a few preview exercises to wrap up 9.6. And that takes care of Chapter 9. We'll start 10.1 in the next video.